You didn't think we were going to get through the holiday week without more new model drops, right? Do you not remember last year when DeepSeek came out and just dropped a ton of things at the end of the year and the beginning of January right after? We're there again. We didn't get one new model, by the way. We got two from competing labs. Both are open weight. Well, kind of. We'll get to all that in a sec. First, we have GLM-4.7, which benchmarks like this. We also got Minimax M2.1, which benchmarks like this, apparently higher than Opus and Sonnet. We have a lot to talk about there. I've seen claims all over the web, everything from Anthropic is dead to Opus 4.5 has been destroyed with a model 10 times cheaper to OpenAI is going to go out of business. I think that's all a little much. Are these the best new models ever? No. So put down your counter. I see you there incrementing the counter. No, just put it down, put it down. We're still on Opus. That said, these models are incredible and I am blown away with what they can do. One more so than the other, and I've spent a lot of time with them. For the last 2 days, I have been grinding nonstop in VS Code using Kilo, as well as in my terminal using OpenCode to try and get the best I possibly can out of these two new models. I am very deep in token usage right now, but I feel like I know everything I need to responsibly cover these models right after a word from today's sponsor. Going to start with a quick overview of the models from the labs themselves, and then we'll dive into what it actually looks like to use them to build real features, because you might have seen I've been building a lot of stuff with Opus recently, so I went to try and rebuild those things with these new models, and the results were fascinating, to say the least. First, we have GLM 4.7. It came out slightly before M2.1, although I did have early access to M2.1. I only started using it very recently. GLM 4.7, I got the day it came out, and everybody else had access. GLM 4.7, your new coding partner, is coming with the following features. Core coding. This is a big thing. These models are really, really focused on coding. GLM 4.7 brings clear gains compared to its predecessor 4.6 in multilingual, agentic coding and terminal-based tasks. It did much better in SWE Bench, did much better in SWE Bench multilingual, and pretty good on Terminal Bench too, bumping up 16.5% from the 20-ish range to 41. With Vibe coding, it's now a major step forward in UI quality. We'll definitely test that out. Produces cleaner, more modern web pages and generates better looking slides with more accurate layouts and sizing. It's also much better at tool usage, in particular with browsing stuff, and it's better at complex reasoning. Meaningful bump on HLE. Here are the benchmarks. This is compared to 4.6, their previous model, DeepSeek 3.2, which was really, really good open weight model. Less practical, but still very intelligent. Claude Sonnet 4.5 and GPT 5.1 high. And there are a few benches where they win or come really close to things like DeepSeek. Most of them, it appears they are neck and neck with GPT 5.1 and quite a bit ahead of Sonnet 4.5. They didn't put Opus in this bench. They probably ran it before Opus dropped. You get the idea, though. It seems to be a very competitive model, especially in the more coding stuff, which almost all of these are. Live Code Bench, SWE Bench Verified, Terminal Bench, Tautu Bench, which is a tool calling bench, and Browse Comp as well. It's doing very well across all of these. And here we can see something very interesting, which is that in a lot of these benches, especially the reasoning ones, Gemini 3 Pro appears to be the winner, which kind of showcases that these shouldn't be trusted that much, because as smart as Gemini 3 Pro appears to be, the amount of knowledge packed into that model is crazy. Actually using it is miserable. I have not had a good time with 3 Pro at all since I started using it. But we go down to the code benches like SWE Bench Verified, Multilingual, all of these, you'll see they are very competitive with the best options. Multilingual, they are losing to, I believe this is DeepSeek, yeah. So losing to DeepSeek and the Multilingual, but they are neck and neck with everybody else. Honestly, they're pretty close there too. It's good numbers. These numbers look really good. The visual design is one of the biggest wins though. It can make cool looking websites like this apparently. And if you compare to what it did before, oh God, yeah, this is the usual AI slop websites I expect. 4.7 made something actually unique and cool looking. I love the at 2023 though. It gives you an idea of the training data. Ooh. Apparently it knows 3D space pretty well. I did actually run this on Skatebench. Let me find the screenshot. I didn't post the numbers because I'm busy and lazy and doing a lot of things at once. GLM 4.7 got a 66%, which puts it neck and neck Actually, I think it puts it over DeepSeek 3.2. It's the highest scoring open weight model on my skateboarding bench, which is both like a weird niche knowledge bench and a 3D spatial recognition bench, because you need to have some spatial reasoning capability to understand the rotation that I'm describing to name a skateboard trick properly. So I was surprised to see 4.7 did so well here. And also, Minimax M2.1 did very poorly here. All things we will get to. This is cool as hell, though. Did I have a 4.6 comparison? Yeah. Yeah. Slightly better. Just a marginal improvement. Again, with the design taste, it can make things that actually look decent. Very cool to see. And of course, it is fully open weight. You can go download it from Hugging Face. Good luck running it, though, because it's 717 gigs of data. Even the more compressed versions that I've seen floating around are looking like 300 plus gigs. It's a big model. The 358 bill model, not trivial. You can absolutely run it on things that a human can purchase, but you're going to have to put effort in. You're not running this on consumer hardware. We'll play with it a bunch in a bit, but first we have to talk about the other new model that dropped, Minimax M2.1. I did get early access from the Minimax team. They gave me a free sub to their $50 a month tier. I barely used it. I ended up just going through OpenRouter when it dropped. I used their thing early so I could have early access. So yeah, they hit me up. They talked nice to me. They gave me early access. They follow me back on Twitter, so account for some bias there. But I do actually really like the teams at ZAI doing GLM. I really like the team at Moonshot doing Kimi. Kimi K2 is my favorite model to talk to right now. And I really like the Minimax guys as well. So account for bias across all of them, even if the only one that actually gave me free stuff was Minimax. I don't care about any of that. I just want a way to play with the stuff. They've all been awesome to interact with, much more so than the big labs. OpenAI is still really, really good too, to their credit. But I'm blown away with how good the interactions have been with these teams. That all said, let's take a look at how the model actually behaves. So the key highlights of 2.1 are its exceptional multi-programming language capabilities. They really tried to focus on it working with lots of different languages. Previously, it was mostly focused on Python, which is why it did so well on so many benches, but sucked to use in the stuff I build. They have significantly enhanced its ability to do Rust, Java, Golang, C++, Kotlin, Objective-C, TypeScript, JavaScript, and other languages. I use a few of those. Very cool. On the note of programming languages, I've had a video I really wanted to do for a while now about how different models behave with different languages. Of all people, Tencent published a really in-depth benchmark comparing how the models perform across programming languages, and you'll never guess which language performed the best. It wasn't Python at a 65%, it wasn't JS at a 60.9%, it wasn't TypeScript at a 61.3%, or even Ruby at an 81%. It was Elixir at a 97.5. Yeah. If you want me to do a dedicated video on this, let me know, because it's been fucking with my head for months now. The other thing they say it improved in is web dev and app dev. It's a comprehensive leap in capability and aesthetics. I haven't actually tested the aesthetic side of this model much yet. We will do that as we bench. It also is apparently really good at iOS and Android development, which is super cool. I personally will not be testing that, but I have friends that probably will, and they might even show up in the comment section. It has enhanced composite instruction constraints, enabling office scenarios. Interesting. Its systematic problem-solving capabilities have further upgraded. The model not only focuses on code execution correctness, but also emphasizes integrated execution of composite instruction constraints, providing higher usability in real office scenarios. I'm sure those words mean things. It's more concise and efficient with its responses. This is actually very nice. I've noticed the difference. It's not super long-winded. It just responds. It has outstanding agent tool scaffolding generalization capabilities. So like when you hand it a different agentic harness, it behaves relatively well in them. So hand it something like Kilo Code or Open Code, Roo Code, Blackbox, Factory AI, Claude Code, whatever. It can, for the most part, figure it out. It understands SkillMD, ClaudeMD. They also really encourage that you hack Claude Code to use it, which I didn't do this time, because last time it was obnoxious. Maybe in the future, I just didn't want to gut my Claude Code config. If anybody has an easy-to-use open source project where I can have like Claude Code as default Claude Code, but also have a Claude Code instance that is configured differently to use M2.1 so I can easily swap between stock Claude Code and a hacked up version, that would be really cool. I am too busy to build it, but if somebody has like FNM for Claude Code hacks or NVM for Claude Code, let me know, because that would be really nice. We also have high quality dialogue and writing. It's no longer just strong encoding capabilities. Apparently, it's better at writing. Nothing comes close to Kimi K2 right now, so I don't even care to check it. And then they have a bunch of quotes from all of the harnesses. Again, they're working with everybody, and everyone has been saying it's really, really good. We found that M2.1 handles the nuances of complex multi-step programming tasks with a level of consistency that is rare in the space. By providing high-quality reasoning and context awareness at scale, Minimax has become a core component of how we help developers solve challenging problems faster. We look forward to seeing how our community continues to leverage these updated capabilities. Yep, you get the idea. They like them. They then claim that it outperforms Claude Sonnet 4.5 and closely approaches its Opus. This is kind of bullshit, but we will get to that momentarily. They also created their own set of benchmarks, Vibe Bench, where it is slaughtering. They are testing against GLM-4.6, not 4.7, because these all came out around the same time, so nobody had time to go rerun all the benches on the newest thing. They really like using it with Claude code. You'll see this in a lot of their demos and even with their own onboarding. But again, I didn't want to hack up my Claude code, so instead I got way deeper on open code. And there's a lot to love about open code, but it also has its problems. I have a video that I was really hoping would be out by now, but it's probably going to come out soon after about why I'm loving Opus so much. And I went and built a bunch of actual features using Opus 4.5 in T3 chat and kept going to harder and harder things to see if it could do it. And it could, like weirdly consistently. One of the things I built was an archive feature so that you could archive a thread in T3 chat and have a page where you could see all your archived threads. This feature was surprisingly easy for Opus to build. I had it make a plan. I liked the plan. I told it to build the plan. It built the plan. Whole thing didn't take very long. It did a very good job. I did not see how many tokens it used because I was using Cursor for this. So I decided to do the same build, but this time with various different models in open code. This is a different scaffolding. This is a different harness. So it is going to have different capabilities, limitations, etc. But honestly, I was really impressed with the capabilities I was getting out of open code. I will copy the prompt. I can't attach the current state of the UI for reference, sadly, because I can't paste images into open code, and I don't think either of these models can take images anyways. So let's do a new session. In open code, I'm going to switch over to GLM 4.7, which is currently free on open code. So if you really are a cheapsake, take advantage of that while you can. We'll talk about pricing more in a bit. Just know these models are hilariously cheap and will probably get even more so as more places that can host these open weight models start hosting them. Actually, that was one other thing I almost forgot. The Minimax M2.1 weights are not out yet. M2 is open weight. M2.1 should be open weight. They haven't indicated that it won't be. They just haven't put the weights out just yet. Hopefully, probably coming soon. It might even be out by the time this video is live. Allegedly, the weights for M2.1 are going to drop on Christmas Day. Very exciting. So the weights will be out super soon. And according to Minimax themselves, M2.x, 2.5, M3, lots coming. Let's see how far we can push it. I'm excited. That also means we don't know how fast it can run on consumer hardware or how big it is, but I can speculate, and I love to speculate, so we'll be doing that plenty. So back to actually testing the models. GLM 4.7, open code, plan mode, pasted those lines. You can't see them because of how the UI for pasting works. When I press enter, you can, and we get an awesome UI for this. You get the actual work going on here with a scrollable pane. You get a sidebar that has actual useful information, and it has access to TypeScript, LSP, and OXLint, so that if it makes lint errors, they will be piped right back to the agent, so you don't have to run a command to see mistakes. Really cool stuff. So I started thinking, it knows it's in plan mode, so it has to explore and figure out what to do. And they have sub-agents that are really cool in open code. So I can Control X and go left and right to see these sub-agents that are explore agents that are exploring the code base. And then I can go back to the parent primary agent that all of this data is going to when they're done doing their exploration. They'll summarize what they find and send it back up to the main agent. So they're not just clogging up the context entirely. There's also context compaction in open code that you can run manually, but don't run it when you're doing a generation or it will break a lot of things. Learn that lesson the hard way. Now, I would love to sit here and show you guys how long this takes in real time, but I don't have an hour to waste. Yeah. The planning and actual implementation, the first time I ran 4.7 on this code base for this task, took an hour. Yeah. So instead, I'm just going to show you guys a run I did earlier. Here's the first time I did this. It cut off my message history a little bit. I'm not quite sure why, or if there's a way to see the whole thing. But it thought for a while and wrote a plan that had a bunch of problems. Asked, I think, 2 or 3 questions. One was good. The other 2 were garbage. I answered the questions. I steered it a little bit to give it a better idea of what to do. Then it seemed like I had a good enough plan. So I hit build and it started building. And it struggled a lot. It kept miswriting the React code and immediately getting a ton of errors from the LSP, freaking out about them, and then concluding things that weren't true. Yeah, it was trying to write an optimistic update that it didn't need and kept breaking shit, doubling up code where it would put this like things in there twice, failing tool calls to the search tool and the edit code tool that exists within OpenCode. Sure, I can find some of those tool call fails in here if I look a little bit. Yeah, and here it was confusing the different use query hooks and what they return and breaking a bunch of shit as a result. A lot of, wait, actually, looking at this, it also got very confused that we were using tRPC for some things, even though almost none of the stuff that this feature touched involved the tRPC endpoints. Those are mostly for legacy data and account management stuff. Everything else goes through convex. This whole feature should have been convex. I even indicated that in the original prompt, but it still got very, very lost. It seems like it doesn't pay enough attention to the original prompt as it creates more and more context as it goes. And I learned that thing about the context compaction during this run because it got to like 80K tokens. So I ran a compaction so that it wouldn't go over, and then it broke the generation. It kept getting more and more confused, so I eventually interrupted and told it to not worry about those type errors and to not do the optimistic updating. Told it to continue. It got confused about what it was done with. Finally went back and finished. Ran the dev server that was already running, sleep 5 and curl-s localhost to get the actual HTML content, killed the original one that I had running, and then finally had something that seemed to be working. Also, you have a bunch of remaining to-dos, finish them. Don't touch my fucking dev server. You can tell how I felt at this point. Yeah. Apparently OpenCode will auto-compact, so I didn't need to do that manual compaction that broke things, so that's cool. Now you know that. I'm back there in a thread or in a second. Check out demo. See the one commit I have on that branch? This took an hour. Yeah. Now I'm in my dev server. I have my little archive button. I have this thread that is archived. I can unarchive it and go back. Cool. It works. I can right click this, archive it. It's still showing that thread because it doesn't navigate you out of it when you do the archive if it's the thread that you're already on, which is annoying. I didn't specify that in the prompt, so it doesn't necessarily know. To be fair, none of the models got that right. I did specify during gen that it should hide the archive icon if there are no archived threads, and it failed to do that. I also don't love how it did this in the UI. Like, this treatment sucks. You can't tell what the current state is at all. And it didn't put it in the URL, which is where I think it probably should have gone. That all said, it did it in a way that works after a lot of help and having to rerun it once or twice. Just so you can see what a generation like this looks like, it just finished the planning, took 3.5 minutes. Not bad, especially for free, remember. And it asked some questions for us to answer. Should archive threads appear in search results? If yes, we need a separate query or filter param. Should archive threads still be accessible via direct URL? And where exactly would I like the archive button to be placed in the sidebar? These are all good questions, and I can go through and answer 1, whatever, 2, whatever. You get the idea. I can absolutely do that in here. It's really nice, really convenient. Not the best plan mode overall. It doesn't persist the plans particularly well. A lot of other tools will just write it into your code base, which I think is awesome. But that's just one of the implementations that I did. I also did this with Minimax M2.1. God, scroll state is so broken in this sometimes. Also can't get all the way to the start of this one, sadly, but I again told it make a plan. It made a plan. It asked some questions. I made a mistake here. I thought that OpenCode would do new lines the same stupid way Claude Code does, where you have to escape them. You can just shift enter, it's fine. So yeah, learned that lesson, made that mistake, canceled and retried. Question 1, archive view location, where should the button be? I told it bottom of thread list. Search behavior, should searching threads include archive threads or only active ones? And the empty state, weird thing for it to ask for. So I said bottom of thread list for the first question, only active threads for the second. And for the third one, archive thread should only be visible when you click the archive button. It should not be visible if you've never archived a thread. Specifically, should not be visible if you've never archived a thread. We'll come back to that. So it wrote out its plan, told it to go nuts, and it did. It is worth noting that at no point did it have to compact. It only did about 66K tokens total, and it can do 200K context, so fine. And it cost about 4 cents for the whole run. That number might be off because I switched to the UI version for a bit, but I've not been able to get this generation to cost more than 10 cents. Hilariously cheap. Absurdly cheap in comparison. Not to spoil things coming up, but yeah, Opus is a little bit more expensive. Just a lot. Yeah. So I made the to-do list, looked good, told it to go nuts, and it cranked. Cranked for a while. Here's where we see those old string not found in content errors. There was a lot of this throughout. It seems like there's something about how the edit tools implemented in OpenCode that these particular models don't like that much. I did not see this error when I ran things with Opus, so it does seem model specific, and I know DAX doesn't believe that different models need changes to their system prompt and different harnesses for code stuff. I don't agree. These models will probably need a little bit of steering. That said, it did eventually finish in about 7 minutes. It didn't hide archive threads though. By default, the archive threads were appearing in the main view, which is not how it's supposed to work at all. So I complained about that. It grinded a little more, fixed it in about 1 minute and 20 seconds. I decided to ask it if it was forgetting anything else because there was a couple other little things. Specifically, it was not hiding the archive button. One thing I might have missed, when you archive a thread, the archive button should appear, but the has archive threads query should handle that. There was a problem with that query though. I have no archive threads and the archive button's still appearing. The reason this was happening is because it wasn't getting data off of the return value. The use query hook returns data, loading error, and a few other things, and it was just checking if it returned an object effectively. So try changing has archive threads to has archive threads equals true, and then it got a type error through the LSP. Very good. The comparison appears to be unintentional because the type of use query result in Boolean have no overlap. That might have been, oh, excellent, actually. Regardless, now that it has that error, it realized that the use query returns a use query result object, not the raw data. I need to use .data to properly access the actual value. This is actually a really good example of how the tooling, the model, and the code base all have to interact well. This original thing was not a type error. It was an object check, effectively, for blocking a render. It was bad code, not correct. A linter probably should have caught that. Not trivial to catch, but annoying. The model doesn't have as deep of an understanding of TypeScript as some of the other models, especially from the major labs, but it does know how to deal with errors well. If it gets an error, it can go fix it. And this is why LSP support is awesome, which is why it's cool that Claude Code finally added it almost a year after shipping. Now, most of the CLIs have LSP, which is Language Server Protocol. If you don't know, it's how the language server, which is what's checking your code, communicates to your editor about what's going on. Cool. Behaving much better. Still has these old string and new string replacement issues. It just doesn't get the edit tool very well. Eventually hits this properly, gets it edited, has archive threads, .data is true, then render, otherwise don't. Awesome. Also took 1 minute, 20 seconds to fix that. I told it to move the button. It did in 1 minute, and now it's all done. All of that cost me under 10 cents. I don't necessarily trust the 4-cent number because I was bouncing between their UI and their app here. You get the idea. Make sure this all deploys. All looks good. Oh, no archive button. That's because I have nothing archived. Let's archive this. Now I have something archived. Dope. Solid UI, put the buttons in the right place. The back to threads I actually quite like. It does keep the thread open even when it's archived. So if I have this open, go back, it does that. And if I unarchive, the back to threads is still there, so I can go back here. It fully works. I had to steer it, but it works. But that's also kind of what I've been digging about this model. It is relatively fast. It gets to the problem and fixes it relatively quick. It's solid at planning. It's really solid at following the plan. And it doesn't lose track of the instructions the same way a lot of other models do for these longer running tasks. I was able to get this to just grind on a feature for over 400 lines of code and for like 20 minutes without issue. It can just go out on these journeys, get feedback, make changes, and figure itself out. 4.7, not so much. From my experience, 4.7 needs to be broken into small tasks to complete. If there's a more general ending to the task that it has to get to via multiple paths, it gets lost a lot more aggressively. It needs to be steered quite a bit to finally get where it needs to be. Minimax just needs occasional reminders here and there, as well as context that it can't get because it doesn't have any visual capability or the awareness of everything else going on in general, honestly. You can tell it's a small model, but it is a good model. It is a fast model. It kind of feels like a Walmart brand Opus. As silly as it is, it's good enough to get real work done. I also went and tried it in Kilo, and my experience here was quite a bit different and honestly, meaningfully better. I'll give you guys a look. It started by creating this plan, because I had it in the architect mode, I believe, right? Yeah, architect mode. I had an architect mode, told Minimax M2.1 to make a plan, and it did. Font's a little small, sorry about that. It also made the plan as a markdown file in the code base, which I love. This is the plan it wrote from the same prompt. Add an archive chat feature that allows users to archive threads from the right-click context menu and access archive threads via an archive button in the sidebar. Proposes schema changes. It noticed, because I actually have visibility in the schema for this purpose and just never used it, so it doesn't actually have to make any schema changes. Thread queries, list shows all threads, no visibility filter, they have to add that. Thread mutations, update mutation does not include visibility fields. This is interesting. This is the current state analysis. So it's not just giving a plan, it's analyzing where things are and then writing the plan after, which I don't love. I don't think it needs to have this in the actual plan. This feels like reasoning leaking in, but the actual implementation plan is solid. Update the query to filter for visible threads only. It does actually write code in the plan a lot more, which I don't necessarily love because it could just be writing the code. The point is to have an architecture plan, not to write the code, but it does a good enough job. It creates the new list archived query, which is how it gets the archive data, add visibility to update mutation. Phase 2, the front end side. So it broke up the back end and the front end changes. Good call. Phase 3, UI changes, actually accessing the data from these new hooks. Then it tried to render this. I don't know if I can actually, if there's a way to preview here. I don't use VS Code as much anymore, believe it or not. Open preview. Here we go. Yeah, it doesn't render this. I don't know if they have a way to do that or not, but yeah, it would have a flow chart if I had mermaid rendering in here. Tells us which files need to be modified, test considerations, low, medium, low, complexity, all looks good. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna resave this plan so it has it again. Let's tell it to build. Minimax M2.1, implement the plan archive chat feature MD. If I really wanted to give it the highest chance of success, I would also tell it something like, make sure to create a to-do list based on the details in there or something. Hopefully it will figure out that it should do that. I also forgot to mention Kilo Code has sponsored videos in the past. They probably will again in the future. I'm not using them because they're a sponsor. I'm using them because it's the general use whatever tool that I like the most for testing in a real code editor with a bunch of random models. So if you want a tool that lets you use literally every model ever and compare how they behave across different use cases, use T3 chat. But if you're looking for code cases, Kilo is really cool. It did create the to-do list, broke it up into different phases, and I, spoiler, did this before. It worked fine. Seemed to have better awareness of the code base, but worse awareness of linting and type errors. It's my understanding that the only way context gets to the model in open code is by tool calls looking for things. Whereas Kilo and other tools like Cursor will actually index the code base that you're in and give better methods of access to the models. I could be wrong about how Kilo does it, but I know this for a fact with Cursor, that it indexes your code base and they have their own crazy methods for search that get implemented around the traditional search tools to make the results more contextual for the models. This will also likely take a bit, so while that's going on, I want to talk more about the performance and the pricing, in particular, like the speed side of things. We have over to Open Router, we can take a look at M2.1 here. Through the official Minimax hosting, it's pulling about 75 to 76 tokens per second. There aren't other hosts yet because they haven't put up the weights yet. It is our understanding that they will, but they haven't yet. There's even a link to the weights on Open Router that is currently a 404 that I expect them to resolve in the very near future. With GLM-4.7, it is already out. A lot of hosts aren't pulling that fast of speeds with it. ZAI actually is themselves. They're able to get over 150 TPS. Novedia's hitting 60 and Paracel's hitting 80, but other hosts are as low as 8 tokens per second. So it's a big model. It won't be as easy to host. That's expected. Minimax M2, however, was quite small. Okay, not that small. 229 bill params versus 358 bill for the new ZAI GLM model. About 2/3 the size. GLM 4.7 is a 32 bill param activation during its mixture of expert stuff, whereas Minimax is only activating 10 bill, which helps again with it running faster. If you would like to see this in action, I did download the original M2's GGUF version, which works surprisingly well on my MacBook. It's compressed down to about 78 gigs, which on my 128 gig MacBook with unified memory can fit fully in memory. Takes a bit to load into RAM because it's literally loading 80 gigs of data into memory right now. If you ever wondered why hosting models is so annoying, it's because when two different people want two different models, the time it takes to load one out of RAM and the other into RAM is longer than the request will take a lot of the time. Let's have the model write some poems about JavaScript. Reminder, this is M2, not 2.1, because we don't have the weights yet. This is meant to give you an idea of what performance will probably look like, roughly. Probably should have lowered the reasoning on this run. Still cranked. Ran about 35 TPS on a consumer MacBook. That's pretty cool. Again, it shows these models can actually be used on consumer-ish hardware. I will still be using it over API calls, almost certainly, and they will, of course, be supported on OpenRouter, and I would expect that to be the case indefinitely. Still grinded in Kilo. It's pretty cool that it can go for this long without intervention, but also takes a bit. Oh, no. Yeah, this is the problem I had before that I wanted to showcase. It seems like it goes much better, and then I hit this invalid params, tool results, tool ID, not found, and I'll retry, and it just is dead. Like, this task is now over. This thread is killed. I have to go create a new thread and tell it to continue, which sucks because we just spent 40 cents. It got halfway through phase 2 of 3 phases and died. These things take a bit. This is the rough edges when you're going to use tools like new open weight models in open source plugins for VS Code. There are just so many more layers. Yeah. And once again, just as a reminder, their recommended way of using the model was to use it with Claude code. I did not do that because I don't want to modify my Claude code to use models that it was not built to support and then have to deal with the config swapping constantly. It's very annoying. So I didn't set that up. But you should definitely give it a shot because their plans are much cheaper and the model's pretty dang good. And if you were curious about how Opus handled this, it cranked straight through it. Didn't like the UI part, gave it more suggestions. It fixed those relatively quickly, and all just worked. Tried this in Cursor, it did great. Tried this in open code, it did pretty good. Not quite as good as it did in Cursor. Opus cranked through this, but also cost significantly more to do this. Quick cost comparison, but please remember the input and output costs aren't just like these numbers and that's the whole story. The amount of tokens being generated matters a lot too. And these models are chatty. They generate a lot more tokens per line of code than other models do, especially during the reasoning phase. So just because the costs are cheaper doesn't mean the actual cost to run it is cheaper. It is also cheaper, but it generates a lot more tokens. So just know that going in. Opus 4.5 costs $5 per million tokens in and $25 per million tokens out. 5 and 25. Sonnet is 3 per mil in and 15 per mil out. 25 per mil out, 15 per mil out. Remember those. 4.7, 40 cents per million in, $1.50 per million out. It is a tenth of the price of Sonnet 4.5. It is way more than 1/10 as intelligent. It is capable of a ton, especially if you force it into the box of just making direct code changes. But that's not the craziest one yet. Minimax M2.1 is 30 cents per mil in and $1.20 per mil out. Do you understand how insane that is? These models are comically cheap. This is 1/20th the price of Opus. And Opus just got a huge price drop. Opus 4.5 is 3 times cheaper than Opus 4.1 was. And this is 20 times cheaper than that. This is 60 times cheaper than Opus 4.1. And I would actually consider this model on par with Opus 4.1. Opus 4.5 was a massive jump. They should have just called it 5. This model is similar performance to Opus 4.1 for literally a 60th the price. And just for comparison, the new Flash model that I am still very excited about, it sucks to use in actual like code type usage or talking to or any of those types of things. But as a background worker doing random tasks, like parsing data and giving you a JSON blob out of it, it is really solid for all those things. In this model's 50 cents per mil in and $3 per mil out. So it's still twice as expensive or more as M2, in particular with the output tokens. It is insane. And it's actually possible for the price to get cheaper because it will hopefully be open weight. I'd be very surprised if they don't put up the weights in the next day or two. Other hosts will get more competitive, faster speeds, more bulk processing options, better caching, all those types of things, and can hypothetically get the price even lower. Probably won't bother, but they could. Regardless, this is awesome. It's so cool to see models this good, this cheap, self-hostable, pushing the state of the art forward. But I still want to play with UI. I still really want to see it show its capabilities for UI stuff. So let's set something up for it to do that. I am now generating everyone's favorite, the Image Gen Studio UI, and seeing how the quality looks between GLM-4.7 and Minimax M2.1. High concurrency usage of this API. Please reduce concurrency or text overlay errors. Wonderful. Might have to switch providers. GLM seems like it probably would be the better model if you wanted to use one for things other than coding, like basic analysis, just abusing it for tool calling, object gen, stuff like that. Minimax is much better from my testing at long tasks, at generating plans, at going the 9 yards. Like it has that Claude feel to it where it can work for longer. And the only models I've seen that have this are GPT-5, every Anthropic model since Sonnet 4, and now Minimax M2 and 2.1. I did not use M2 very much, so I don't know how much better this is from M2, but its ability to do long-running tasks has been blowing me away, for an open model especially. I know I didn't use plan mode for this UI gen. It's just UI gen. It shouldn't need a plan. Look at that, using NPM, even though this is a bun project. We love that. It used bun add to add the packages and then ran with NPM run. That was GLM doing that, by the way. I would really like if OpenCode added a tokens per second here. It's crazy they have like working clickable UI. Oh, since it ran the dev server, it might have gotten stuck or thinking okay, now it finally went. That was funny. Yeah, it ran that dev server with the and now lost track of it and is confused. It did this before too, where I had to yell at it. It just doesn't know how to run dev servers, which is very annoying. Minimax doesn't bother doing it. I do have a rule in my cursor rules telling models to not do this, if I recall. Gonna be lazy and do this to hide my email. I do have that rule in cursor. Well, close enough. Don't call build commands unless you really need to. They break my dev environment. You can run type checks all you want. Yeah. These are still going. Seems like GLM 4.7 was able to get itself out of the hole it dug itself into with those dev commands by calling kill commands to get rid of them. And told me that it's running here. I hope it's not still running there. And it's not that either. Oh, I might still have another dev server running. Let me double check that. No, I don't. Okay. There we go. God, this is the GLM version. CSS is hard. Something appears very broken. None of the spacing is right. Everything is compressed into the corner. What is going on? Did you break the Tailwind config? I thought this model was supposed to be good at UI. Minimax is still grinding. It's funny because the model runs faster, but it also does more, so it takes a bit longer. Sometimes. Depends on the task. It did not take longer at all when I was doing the actual changes to a real big code base, which again, like, it's really impressive. This is an open weight thing that you can download and run on your own computer, hypothetically, that is capable of making real changes in an actual production code base being used by hundreds of thousands of people on the web every day. Like, this is not trivial shit anymore. This isn't, oh, it auto-completes, or if you're in the file and tell it to make one change, it sometimes can. This is real work and real code bases. Not what I'm demoing right now. This is a quick, hacky demo app. But the thing I was showing before, that's actual work. Cool. Minimax just finished. That took it 7 minutes and 59 seconds. And here's what it made. Not bad. Testing, generate, has cool fake UI for this. I can go to the gallery view that it made with a bunch of fake images in it. Not bad. Still nowhere near as good at UI as any of the new Opus or especially the new GPT models. And now Gemini 3 is really good at UI as well. This is fine. Considering that this model is basically free to use because it's so cheap. Like, that cost a cent. 1 cent. They wrote almost 400 lines of code for 1 cent. That's insane. The GLM won't show me how much it costs because it's free. I can do manual math after, but it's not far off. It generates more tokens and costs a little less, so they balance out about the same. You know what I'll try? I'm going to do something stupid. Something I've been doing a lot with my own model usage is I use Opus for most things. I'll occasionally pull in 5.2 extra high to do really deep planning stuff. If it has to like touch faraway files with strange things in them, 5.2 is still a decent bit better at planning. And 5.2 is still also quite a bit better at complex style and like spatial relationship type things compared to Opus. Weird CSS shit, I still use the GPT-5 models for. So I've learned that for most things, I should just use Opus and then occasionally switch over to GPT-5 if I know it's a more UI-heavy task that it will benefit for. So let's try that here. I'm going to use M2.1 for Minimax the same way I use Opus as like my general model, general planning, general code, general things. And I'm going to use GLM-4.7 as my UI specialist. Instead of waiting for it to potentially recover whatever the fuck happened over here, I'm going to ask it to fix this code and make it less ugly. So I'm going to give it access to the Minimax M2.1 version and tell it to clean it up. I'm also going to do this inside of Kilo code because for whatever reason, OpenCode's deployment of 4.7 is having a lot of weird issues right now. Switch to Kilo, switch to GLM 4.7. This app is ugly. Make it beautiful. It should be dark mode, relatively minimal, and tasteful. Let's see how GLM does in Kilo code at making this very ugly thing less ugly. I bet it will do this faster than it will finish fixing the gen in the other one. Yeah, there's something up with the Zen deployment. It's just slow. Let me update the styling. Tool call, right, breaks off. Fun. This shit's not as easy as people think. Okay, it's cranking. It just made a new file that just says use client at the top without even having quotes. Is it just rewriting the whole file? Hilarious. It's not even bothering with edits. It's just gunning out a new file. Telling 4.7 how I really feel. Man, I'm excited for these models to get way faster too. That is going to be so nice. What's actually kind of cool is similar to how if you know your tech stacks and frameworks and tooling well enough, you can make good compromises as to what tech to use where. Like you know when it makes sense to use Convex versus a direct Postgres database versus something else entirely. You know when it makes sense to use React versus when you really should go do it in Solid versus when you can't use a framework, it'll get in your way. That type of knowledge is starting to exist within models, where you might know 4.7 is better at UI than Minimax 2.1, but Minimax 2.1 is way better at planning and doing long-running tasks. And knowing which to use where to optimize for both capability and cost is really cool. Like I could see a legitimate use case here being to use Minimax as your go-to general use model and then go spin up Opus 4.5 with the front-end skill to do the homepage and the front-end UI, but not to have it do anything else. That way you can spend money on like your marketing and your homepage and not spend that much with the actual implementation where you're generating way more tokens. You can limit where and how you use the more expensive models or even the dumber models to specific boxes to maximize how much you're getting for the money you spend. Or you can be lazy and just use Opus for pretty much everything like I've been doing, but the fact that you can get so close for so cheap is absurd. Let's see how it did. Okay, here is the GLM version editing the code that it got from Minimax. And it's nice and minimal and looks a bit better. It did keep the original UI a little more than I would have hoped, but it looks solid. I do like the minimalism. I'm going to tell it to do one last pass. Wrote quite a prompt for this. Get more creative with it. Don't be afraid to change the layout entirely. You have full creative control. Use it to make something outstanding. And for some reason, that was a queued message. Okay, it appears I just broke Kilo code entirely. Kilo team, I want to love what you're building. We need to chat. Did it fail again? Kilo. I'm getting annoyed. Okay, here's the original from GLM 4.7 and OpenCode. It finally fixed the layouts. What did it do wrong? It did a lot of random shit that wasn't actually fixing things. The div class relative doesn't have any height or flex properties, so everything's compressed. Yeah, I don't buy the GLM's really good at UI thing as much as they showcased it here. This is bad. Embedding the background as a data URL hard-coded into the Tailwind class name is a choice. It's an interesting way to do things. Ugh. I haven't used skills in Claude Code before. You just tell it to use the skill? Fun. Let's paste the same prompts. Use your front-end design skill. Man, whoever makes the first model that doesn't randomly run your fucking dev server for no reason is going to get a lot of my money. Yeah, Opus just failed to write CSS that works. It also wrote a shitload of CSS, which, like, we're using Tailwind. Does not need to do thousands of lines of CSS. Oh, this might just be how it builds because of the other things I'm using. Okay, a little bit different. This is when I gave Claude the design skill, and it made a pretentious research website that you would see somebody working on out of a Starbucks cafe. Like, it looks really cool, but the actual UX of navigating it is shit. It feels like it tried too hard, is the best I can put it. But it's cool it can do something like this. I might use this for a homepage. The skill really steered it here. You are curious how much this design cost and getting it to fix the imports and then rebuild. It's about $1. Yeah. 4 minutes of API time and $1 to do that. So you get the idea. You can implement the whole feature for 10 to 40 cents with Minimax, or you can make it look nice with Opus for 10x more. The cost difference is crazy. Good day to be a cheap bastard. By the way, if you want a good UI to test talking to these models in, like asking it to write code for you or whatever else you want them to do, T3 Chat is still by far the best UI you can use any of these models in. I don't care what other people say. The rest suck for this type of general use. But we also support great models like Gemini 3, both Pro and Flash. The best image gen experience with Nano Banana right now by far, which is annoying. We shouldn't be so far ahead. And my favorite model to chat with, Kimi K2. Chances are, if you're excited about models like this, it's because you're a bit of a cheap bastard. I get it. I am too. So I'm going to give you a deal. Normally, every month is $8 on T3 Chat, which is already a great deal. But just for you, if you use the code CHEAPBASTARD at checkout, your first month will be just $1. Yes, $1 if you use code CHEAPBASTARD at checkout. Anyways, good model. The front-end design skill seems actually good. There's just a few paragraphs that tell it how to design better. There's just 900 tokens of instructions. Focus on typography, color and theme, motion, spatial composition, background and visual details. Never use generic AI-generated aesthetics like overused font families, Inter, Roboto, Arial, system fonts. Cliched color schemes, particularly purple gradients on white backgrounds. This isn't a skill. This is Anthropic writing a markdown file to tell the model to stop doing all of the same bullshit. This is like adding to the system prompt, never say you're absolutely right to fix the problem. It's actually really funny. Reading through Anthropic's skills is the best way to get an honest representation of how the models behave, because this is where they hide all the things to make it stop doing its bullshit. That's so funny. That's so funny. Yeah, and there's a good font. Is it built in Anthropic skill? No, this is a skill that you can get from the Anthropic GitHub. Claude Code /plugin /frontend design /skills. This is a skill that they published on their GitHub that they updated last month. It is just this markdown file. That's a skill. And to be clear, this repo does not mean Claude Code is open source. It is not. Claude Code is actually the single source of the most DMCAs in the history of GitHub because they accidentally leaked their source map once. Claude Code is very closed source. They just have some of the community pieces here. It's probably the most stars on any GitHub repo that doesn't actually include the source that the GitHub repo is named after. It's very silly. And a lot of people seem to think Claude Code is open source because there's a repo named Claude Code with 50K stars that gets changes every day. But this is not Claude Code being open source. The actual package, the thing you install, closed source. And it's the only major CLI that is closed source still. Just saying. And back to the open source one running GLM, it's still going. This one's been going for like 20 minutes. And I'm tired of wasting y'all's time. I feel like I've covered this adequately. The models are good. 4.7 is good at focused work and completing specific small tasks. Minimax M2.1 can go for a long time on lots of things and generate really surprisingly good results. They're both open weight. They have both meaningfully raised how much you can get done for really small amounts of money. So if you're on a tight budget and those $200 a month subscriptions make you feel sick, you should probably use T3 Chat because it's only $8 a month. But you should also consider using these open weight models with tools like OpenCode in order to generate incredible results slightly slower and significantly cheaper. I love releases like these, and I'm really pumped about the things that we're seeing come out of these open weight Chinese labs. The results are unbelievable. I would never have believed this type of performance was possible at all, even just 6 months ago. The fact that this is a file you can download and run on your own machine to do things like this is so cool. This is a great way to end the year, and I'm so excited to see what these labs cook next year. Until next time, peace, nerds. And yes, it's still going.